welcome to the D3D4 Football Podcast with me, your host, James Richards. Right, thank you for joining us this morning. Another League 1 and 2 podcast, slightly less focused on League 1 today because, of course, the international call-ups have cancelled some of the schedule. No Dave with us either today, so it's just myself, James Richards, with Ed Walker and Chris Stringer, looking at all the action that did take place. And I'm pleased to say we had quite a few games in League 2 which are very much worth talking about. Before we get into any of the football though, I'd just like to say a big thank you to our partners, The Big Step, who are doing great work to bring to the attention of the world the problematic relationship between gambling and football, and in particular the amount of gambling adverts saturating the game. If you haven't listened to the Price of Football podcast before, I urge you to do so. The last 2 episodes had some very interesting things to say about the gambling industry. And guys, one of them, and I can't believe this, I still have to believe I heard this wrong, but they said the amount of money spent in this country on gambling last year was twice the NHS budget.
Wow. Bloody hell.
Don't have a gambling problem in this country, apparently. But oh my goodness. I mean, that is the concerning thing. The number of people with problems from gambling are going up. Because, of course, there is a conservative figure that says it's 400,000. But let's be honest, if most people with gambling problems don't admit to them. So it's obviously going to be a lot higher. But I am pleased to see the Big Step doing great work to try and bring this to attention to people. Bolton Wanderers, as we said last week, made the move to stop having gambling partners and to stop having on-site gambling facilities at the Unibowl, which is great stuff, and I hope more clubs follow suit. And also, let's keep an eye on them trying to sneak in this cryptocurrency hurrah on the slide. That's another snake in a different skin. So
it was Southampton that said that, wasn't it?
That was a bizarre one. The train, is it a training sponsor or something?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, it's just like I say, it's the same thing and just up slightly differently, but it is exactly the same. It's exactly the same dangers, and it's something that we should all be aware of. And really, we don't want that in football. Stop contaminating our sport with stuff that we just don't want. I don't think anybody wants to see football become like this big partnership with gambling. It's a decade, I suppose, of it's slowly creeping in, but we've got to a point now where it's inescapable and it's quite dangerous. So not at all something we want to see, and that's why here at D3D4 we've teamed up with the Big Step to try and just bring that awareness. New patron Neil Salter, thank you so much for joining, Neil. It's great to have you on board, and in fact all our patrons who make it great and easy for us to do this podcast without having to rely on sponsorship from any outside source. The patrons cover the cost of this, and we do hugely appreciate it. If you want to become a patron, you can do it for as little as £1 a month, and it would make a big difference to us, and we really appreciate your time for doing it. You can find our link on our Twitter page, and I say we love the fact that you guys support the content that we are producing. And today it's going to be a slightly different pod. We're going to start in League 2 because there are only 4 games on the slate in League 1. And let's be honest, if we jump in now, we'll see it didn't disappoint.
League 2.
Now on Friday night, guys, Tranmere Rovers beat Colchester 2-0. Not a surprising scoreline at all, seeing as Tranmere just don't concede goals. Only 4 conceded this season.
4. Absolutely ridiculous.
4 goals.
They've still only scored 8 though.
They have, but
it's bizarre.
It's frugality at its best, isn't it? Is that a word, frugality? Being frugal? I don't know.
It is now.
It is now. But it's just unbelievable, isn't it, that they've scored 8 goals, they've conceded 4, and they are 4th in the table.
And their top scorer is a 39-year-old centre-back.
Yeah.
He's too old.
Past it. What a professional.
I won't give up on this. I won't.
He's a great professional, Peter Clark, and
Incredible.
Probably part of the reason that their defence has been so solid. I've been delving into the numbers because it hurts my head, this, because they've scored the least goals, I think, or probably not anymore thanks to those 2. I think Scunthorpe have fallen behind them, and Oldham have scored less than them. But
you're right, yeah.
Colchester as well, yeah.
Yeah.
Oldham are the lowest on 6, then it's Scunthorpe and Colchester on 7.
Indeed. So Friday night has boosted their standing in the goals for table, but their defence has just been absolutely solid. And for a while, let's be honest, Mickey Mellon didn't really quite understand or have in his mind his best 11. I don't think he understood his best formation. I think he kept chopping and changing between like the 3 at the back, the 4-2-3-1, the 4-3-3 tried this season. It was a little bit like, where do I go and how do I get the best out of this team? Well, I actually think it's quite interesting. He's kind of gone for a 4-5-1 in the last few games, and Elliot Nevitt has been leading the line. The defence looks like it's nicely compact, but it's got good width. McDonald coming back at left back, I think, is a big boost. He's a player I think will probably be a star, and is certainly, in my opinion, a better player than Ridhuller, who's gone off to Bradford. I think he's got a bigger ceiling on him. So I think McDonald is return. Obviously, I think he had injuries at the start of the season which kept him out, but having him back's good. I think Coley has done an excellent job at right back. Starting to show what he can do, and a very athletic player. And then Peter Clark and Davis as the centre backs, fine. And you've got obviously Knight Percival who could come in as well if you need to. They've got Merry who can play at left back. But Ed, this midfield, what do you make of it now? Because it's kind of what Kieran Morris playing in a midfield 3 with Spearing and Foley. That's quite nice because it allows the wingers to. We need to see more from Callum McManaman. We're starting to see that now. He's a bit freer in this formation, and it's paying dividends.
Yeah, I think it was the thing I liked most probably about Tranmere last season was their midfield. They had so many options in there, people who could play in sort of wide or central positions. I remember watching them at times last season. They played quite narrow. People who could progress the ball, get it on the turn, progress it further up fields. When you got Spearing at the base as well, it's just this absolute rock, really physical tackler as well. Really good mix of technical play and physicality in there. You had people like Kieran Morris as well, who's got such great versatility. He's played all sorts of positions for them and seems to have had a home in central midfield with Sam Foley. And then adding people like Ryan Watson, maybe Chris Merry as options, or Mark Duffy into there as well. That right side for me at Tranmere at the minute of Josh Dacres, Cogley and Callum McManaman, I think he's going quite under the radar. That's a really good right-sided pair, and it's really starting to flourish. I was quite a fan of Cogley when I saw him on loan at Crawley Town a couple of seasons ago now, and they got him now permanently in, having come from Birmingham City, and I think he could end up becoming one of the best right-backs at this level, for sure.
Yeah, I think I always wondered what he'd have done for Crawley if he hadn't got that awful injury.
Yeah, that was a terrible shame, that.
Yeah, sent him back. He played actually at left-back in a couple of matches I saw him play for Crawley, and he was very athletic, really, really, took people on, had great pace. And
should give a mention as well, to on the other side, Josh Hawkes, who I'm really enjoying on loan from Sunderland. There seems to be a couple of good Sunderland loanies in League Two at the minute that are wingers.
Exactly.
Him and Alex and Diamond as well, Jack Diamond.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously Hawkes getting his first senior goal in the EFL. Wonderful to see. I look at this Tranmere data and the numbers, and of course, if you've only conceded 4 goals, you're going to, let's be honest, you're going to be overachieving your XG.
Yeah, there was you might be the same one as me. I saw this great thing from Ben Mayhew, who's Experimental 361 on Twitter, who puts out these great graphics, and they do one about sort of defensive ability in terms of the amount of shots you're facing, the amount of goals you're conceding, so how many shots it takes, for instance, to concede a goal. And all League Two is kind of put down together at the bottom, and then there's like a massive gap, and Tranmere right up at the top as being like a really competent defence, but face a lot of shots.
Yeah.
You almost have to look twice to find them in there. It's quite funny.
Do you see Peter Clark jump on the floor and stop a shot with his head? I think it was
That's
on Friday.
Peter Clark. Peter Clark.
He's a madman. I love him.
He's a fully committed professional defender. He actually takes it as to another level. It's like an artist. If sculptors from the Renaissance were doing their designs now, Peter Clark would get his own statue. 100% sure. But we, unfortunately we're not in that era anymore, and Sistine chapels are wasted with frescoes of stuff that I really don't understand or have any interest in. But Peter Clark with, a ball, diving in front of a ball, smacking him in the head would be right on the top of the things I want painted on.
Getting in Liverpool Cathedral.
Yeah, roof of my cathedral, absolutely. But their XGA is something like 10 or 11. So that's how many they should have conceded. So it does also suggest that they're getting some excellent goalkeeping, because Joe Murphy was doing a good job. Obviously, Davies out with his Achilles injury. But the young chap they've got at the moment on loan from, I believe it's Celtic, isn't it, Ed?
Yes, Ross Stewart.
He's looked good. Nice. When they signed him, I thought, well, they've already got 2 goalies. But of course, Davies' injury is long term. So a sensible addition and much needed because Murphy obviously had that concussion. I think he's back now, but Doan's kind of taken over as the number one, which is fine because he's doing a good job. They're just not conceding goals. In terms of their position and where they are in the league, is it sustainable? Because I think they will start to concede goals. It's
You've got to think there's a point where they do ship a lot if their XG against is that high.
It's kind of the fourth worst in the division, though I don't think the figures have updated for this week.
They feel like a team that you just kind of trust them to do enough, don't you, to win these kind of games? They feel like a team that's not going to have a lot of goals in their games at the minute, and it's going to go in their favour in terms of the scoreline.
They're kind of an anti-Oldham compared to last season.
Yeah, that's it. Oldham let in loads of goals, scored loads of goals, trying to score none, but concede even less.
But I mean, the fundamental of football is score more than you concede. They're doing that, and they don't look at risk. I think you're right that they will probably have one or two games where they lose, 4-0 or something, just from having a few too many beers the night before or whatever.
I'm sure that won't be the actual.
I'm sure that won't be the official. No, you're right. But you get my point. But I think it is sustainable. I think they will.
It's interesting as well because there are quite a lot of old players in that side. A lot of people that you probably say are 30 plus, and I think a lot of people look at 30 plus teams and kind of think, is that the right approach to have?
Yes,
it works quite well for Tranmere. If they've got that central spine that's so experienced, it's working really well.
Yeah, you want that degree of. It's what the teams that struggle in this league cry out for, that kind of experience. You can certainly have too much of
but
it.
That's what I'm saying. There's a balance though, isn't it? Like you don't want everyone 30 plus. You want some 30 plus and some like 20 plus.
Yeah, you end
get
up
that balance in between.
You risk doing what Salford have done and bringing in journeymen that are going for the last pay packet.
Yeah.
But also, if you're bringing in experienced League 1 and 2 players like your Peter Clarks, then it's only going to add to your team. And it doubles up because they take on if not formally, they take on a degree of coaching as well.
Yeah, you see teams like Scunthorpe with young players struggling, and to an extent maybe Carlisle slightly at the minute as well. Newport have a lovely balance, I think, to their squad. If you look at how they played, they should have won yesterday. We'll come on to that in a minute. But yeah, Tranmere. At Colchester, I'm a bit worried about Colchester.
I think they're stale, to be honest.
They have the second worst XG from open plays, and they have, I think, the worst XGA from open play. Their data is almost as, actually Scunthorpe have slightly worse than them, I tell lie, but that's not a surprise. So Colchester, really bad in the data. Their fans saying their performances are actually worse than the results they're getting, which is even, from the eye test point of view, is worrying. Their team should be better on paper than last year, but it just isn't. No matter what season they play in, they have played a few formations this year, but they seem to always revert to this 4-2-3-1, which they don't have a striker, Ed, really. And I think that's the difference between the teams we've seen there with John McGreal and what we're seeing now. Like, Frank Nouble played as a sort of a left attacker under John McGreal's side, and he was very effective out there. But Theo Robertson, I think, scoring the goals. Norris, I think, was up there as well as a bit more of a hold-up man. But they just don't. They don't really have a striker. They have a load of players who are diminutive, can play in behind. But I'm just not convinced at all by Colchester United in the way that the data is trending for them and the performances they're getting at the moment. And this is another loss.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel because you mentioned that there isn't probably what you call a natural centre forward in there, and I kind of agree with that. But I also think that can work. I think back to Carlisle last season, who were using, people like Jimmy Torre, Luis Alessandra, and then I forgot the other guy who was up top with them.
Josh Coyote.
Yeah, that was a front three that wasn't really natural forwards. They just interchanged with one another, and it could work really well for the style that they played. But Colchester just don't seem to be able to do it at the same level with people like Nouble, Hamilton, Sears. It just doesn't seem as effective.
Yeah, I think Coyote was a level above what Colchester have, though, because I thought he was an excellent target man. And there's a reason that I think Rotherham didn't lend him back out to anyone. But I get your point. It can work. It often doesn't, though. And I think we saw with Walsall when they didn't have George Miller how much they struggled to create.
I think the positive, one positive I do have with Colchester, which I'm not surprised, is Brendan Wiradu. I still think he's an excellent combative midfielder and will have a very bright future.
I think Shamal George for me is their man.
He's been good as well,
because without him, if you look at the data, they'd have been much worse off, certainly. But worrying times for them and worrying times for Scunthorpe United, who at half-time were already 5-0 down in their game against Harrogate.
Wow.
It's good going.
Finished 6-1. Not to take anything away from Harrogate, because they are, like the team we'll talk about next, Sutton, they are this side that are just well acquainted with their tactics, well acquainted with their coaching, well acquainted with each other as a team. They know what they have to do. They have a 4-4-2 formation, and I think we've become snobs about 4-4-2. It's League Two football.
I've never been a snob against 4-4-2.
Well, a lot of people have been.
Some people just don't use it effectively. Harrogate are a great example of what you can do.
Yeah.
Similar to Sutton, actually.
Yeah.
There's a reason I love John Sheridan.
2 wingers is all you need that are quick, effective, and can get in behind, and strikers that are, you don't even need to have. If you look at Sutton, you wouldn't say they've necessarily got out and out goal scorers or anything like that. Arguably, until this season with Armstrong, Harrogate haven't either necessarily. But
it's quite funny with Harrogate as well, because you think about the midfield pair, Josh Stalking, Alex Patterson, Lloyd Kerry. None of them are exactly big.
No, they're not.
In fact, you probably said they're among the smallest players in the league, but they control it really well. It's quite funny how they managed to do it.
Well, Falkingham is he's a bit of a fulcrum, isn't he, for the team? He really is combative, keeps possession well, keeps things ticking over. I like what Patterson has. I think Patterson's technically a lot better than some of the players at this level as well. Not really sure why he didn't make it in the division above. He's certainly been. I think he was at Wycombe, wasn't he, before?
Bit of a different style of player though with Wycombe and Harrogate, though, isn't it?
Absolutely, of course. But I mean, Harrogate yesterday, the goals that they scored on the break were sensational. To take nothing away from the poor defending and the joke of a team that Scunthorpe currently are. Harrogate played some good football and scored some great goals. Jack Diamond is fantastic.
What a player.
George Thompson's great, and you've got Power to come in when he's not playing, and who's a very good winger. Dorsey's look excellent, a guy they plucked out from non-league. They've got good options at centre-back, although Rory McArdle, I think, will be a miss, but Smith and who's the other centre-back they've had? Hall, is it?
Connor Hall,
yeah. These guys have been... Burrell's an excellent player. They've got Falkingham. They've got Lewis Page. Obviously.
Warren Burrell, I think, is the most underrated man in that squad. He goes anywhere across the back line. He's so dependable. There's not a lot of people who... Well, you get some who can operate as a full-back on what you call their wrong side. He does it so well at left-back, even though he's probably more naturally right-sided player.
Absolutely. Scunthorpe, what can you say? I mean, they are a terrible team. They've got... they've got no... I honestly think that Mozart would struggle to get a tune out of this team. People can look at Neil Cox and point fingers. But honestly, what's he expected to do? I mean, yes, he has to take responsibility because he's the manager. But I'm not sure I can see another coach coming in and doing better with what they've got. I mean, Jack Scrimshaw and Lofter looked on paper to be a decent front two, but they're both young, fairly inexperienced, and were nullified so easily yesterday. Defensively, they're all over the place. They've got midfielders and players that they've signed that clearly aren't up to the level.
Have they paid back their EFL loan?
Not
because,
as far as I know.
Because I'm worrying again, going into January, same as with Oldham. How do you strengthen this squad?
I don't think they can necessarily, because the owner as well has basically said on a recent interview that his businesses were hit hugely badly because he's in hospitality by COVID. So cash flow's an issue. They're trying to run the club basically on what it makes, which is
nothing in League Two.
Especially when you're playing this badly and a third of your fan base are not coming to matches. Just terrible, absolutely terrible. I mean, Alex Kenyon has been a big loss, but I'd be loath to say that him returning into the centre of that park will suddenly turn this team from a certainty for relegation into.
It takes it from a 6-1 match to a 5-1 match.
Oh, well, that works well. Brilliant.
So there you go.
Even more painful to me from a Scunthorpe perspective. You go down one place in the pyramid. Look who's top of the National League at the minute.
Yeah.
Grimsby Town.
And they're selling out their stadium.
Everything's good to them.
Yeah.
Oh,
everything's
run
good.
for North Lincolnshire switcheroo at the minute, which I wasn't seeing coming.
I think I agree with
well,
you.
I wasn't too shocked once they got taken over Grimsby and started.
There's a lot of competition in that league though, and they do look very good.
Yeah. We went to Woking yesterday and got a win, which is up the road from me, and Woking are a well-run side, so that it's not an easy place to go and get a result. But we're desperately worried about Scunthorpe. Very little positives to garner from anything they've done this season. They literally are just cannon fodder at the moment, and I can't see it improving But well done, Harrogate. They just.
Funnily enough, do you know who their one win is against so far?
Oh.
Tranmere Rovers.
Yeah.
Their one win is against the best defensive side in the league.
Yeah, it's funny that, isn't it? It's just. I mean, yeah, they beat Scunthorpe. I think Tranmere at the time were having a few problems.
They had a slow start, didn't they?
They did. They just couldn't score goals. I mean, and they still necessarily. They will start to pick up in terms of both, I think, looking at the data. Tranmere. They'll concede more than they are, but they'll keep scoring. So. But it'd be an interesting team to keep an eye on. As will Harrogate, if they can keep going in the model of stability, they are, and brilliant stuff as well. Sutton United beat Port Vale 4-3. They Port Vale, who
what a game!
Yeah, who basically had done to Leyton Orient this just a couple of weekends ago, and Sutton have come in and beaten a 4-3 in a right classic. And have to say again, the reason Sutton do well is they play a nice 4-4-2. They've got pacey wingers in Enzio Baldwin and Adjaboy, who's been brilliant for a couple of seasons now. Solid defence, and even missing. Rowe came in, but they were missing.
I don't know. They didn't look too solid on those first two Port Vale goals, though.
Well, you're right. They very poor start, but generally speaking, they haven't been a bad side at all this season defensively. Right. And I think Port Vale.
Did I hear it was a bit of a mix-up that led to the winner?
Was it a throw-in that
sort of a drop cross or something? I think is what I heard.
Not quite. It was
Milson to score.
But cross came
Cut the
in.
road, sorry.
There was a bit of a fumble, and then Rowe just smashed it in from about 7 yards out. I don't know how he managed to actually get the angle on it to get it into the roof of the net from that close.
That was impressive. That was an impressive finish.
It was a hell of a finish.
Yeah. It's a centre-back shot. They just don't keep it down.
We just wellied it, exactly. Wellied it into the roof of the net. But I think, when you look at Port Vale, they conceded from a deflected goal. Ben Garrity somehow directed the perfect cushion header into his own net.
It was a cracking finish, that.
Yeah. He sort of let it bounce and just... It's almost like I don't know what he's trying to do, to be honest. I assume he's trying to just head it back. I mean,
you have been speaking, the benefits of Ben Garrity this season, and he's really shown his quality there.
Oh, he's done. Give over.
He's done well. He's a decent. I think he's a decent player. And he's progress.
All right, yeah.
He's going to progress. But Port Vale, I have no concerns about them. I think they have a really nice squad, good depth, good. I mean, Conlon is superb. That goal he scored yesterday, lovely take. Just such a brilliant player, and they're so blessed to have him and kept him over the summer. So Port Vale, I'm not worried about. Sutton, I have no concerns about Sutton either. I think they are a team. I don't see them. I have to be honest. It'd be amazing if they made the playoffs, but it's so early. I don't think we even should be countenancing where.
I think Oldham played them at the right time.
Well, they weren't that bad when you played them. To be honest, you kind
of. They had some hardship in the early parts of the season, losing late to Forest Green and Oldham, so they could be even better, to be honest, than they are at the moment.
Yeah, by all means, I don't think they necessarily played badly. They didn't deserve those defeats from what I remember of the matches. So, but Matt Cray's done a great job. The whole club is doing really well. And unlike other teams that have come up from the National League, this has not been done off the back of high spending, bringing in lots of overpaid veterans. This has been done by building a team of really quite determined...
It's really refreshing, that, isn't it?
Yeah, love it.
To know that it still can be done.
Love it, because they were talking about survival in the National League last year, and they went and won the league.
Amazing.
I love it.
The chairman, I think, was it on Quest that the manager said he jokes with him. He said his job last season was to keep them in the National League, and he unequivocally failed.
I love that.
Yeah, indeed. At Swindon, let's give them the credit where credit's due, because this summer, let's be honest, we thought they would be a car crash coming into the season. They had no players. Their management of the appointment of Ben Gardner, let's be frank here, was not inspiring considering what we'd seen of him at Bristol Rovers, although I think, as we were noticing, perhaps there was mitigating factors behind that. But they went to Forest Green with 5 players on international duty, 5 good players, it must be said, and they beat them 2-0. Harry McCurdy's got a new lease of life. He's showing the talent that we know he had, but he's, maybe he's a little less of a live wire off the pitch. Maybe he's maturing, because if he can mature and keep up the performances that we know he produces...
Oh, he'll be untouchable at this level if he can mature.
He'll be too good for this level. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Great finish that he did yesterday for the goal. Ben Gladwin whipping it in, and I don't know how he cushioned it into the corner in the way he did, but it was absolutely superb. But he's been an absolutely brilliant player. Tyree Simpson scoring as well, having one disallowed. Forest Green obviously will feel aggrieved that they didn't get at least something from this game, but I certainly feel that Swindon's backup keeper getting his chance because Jojo Wallacott was off with Ghana. I think it's Ghana he's gone off with to play international duty. And it gave Lewis Ward the opportunity to show what he can do. And he was probably a bit of a frustrated figure joining, I think, Swindon to try and get first team football. And he hadn't really been able to get any. But he was absolutely brilliant yesterday. 3 or 4 class saves against his old club to steal the points for Swindon. A really good victory for the Robins. And just, like I said, they just, from where they were and where I expected them to be, guys, hats off to them, surely.
Oh, yeah.
Nothing more than that. Brilliant. No, I do remember kind of, maybe a week or so before the season, we felt quite confident about where we put them in our league prediction. And then you saw the players come in over the next couple of weeks. You thought, yeah, we've got that wrong.
Well, yeah.
I think everyone kind of felt that way.
I'm happy to have got that wrong, though, because I don't want to put a team in the bottom 2 of this division because of what was going on in the summer for this, off the pitch for this team. Essentially someone was trying to ruin the club, maliciously as well. Like, there's no doubt.
It's still mental what happened. Like, it's still one of the most bizarre things I've seen happen.
Oh, it's just lack of governance in football that allows these things to take place. We need to have, if you're taking any money from anyone as part of an ownership deal of a football club, even if it's 10%, 15%, and we've come on to Rochdale shortly.
I was going to say, what's the likelihood with that at the minute?
I was about to say, what's been weirder, the Swindon or Rochdale circumstances?
Yeah, it's ridiculous. You should have very strict rules about who owns football clubs, and it should be there should be an independent body that oversees all of this, and it should be financed by football itself. There's enough money to finance it because it could be an independent body that looks at all the football in the Premier League all the way down. It doesn't have to just be separate for EFL and Premier League because it's the same. It should be the same rules. People coming in to own football clubs should prove they have the money. They should be ethically sound. Newcastle.
Yeah. Very, very important to say this week.
Yeah. I don't know what's more depressing, the state of the country or the state of football at times. So it is just something that shouldn't be allowed to happen. And Swindon, I'm so glad they managed to get out of the trouble and they've been brilliant. But it's an ongoing issue. We're seeing Rochdale, who yesterday lost to Crawley. Before we get onto the football, let's just briefly talk about the stuff going off the pitch. They avoided a hostile takeover, thanks to, in large part in the summer, due to the work by the community trust or the supporters trust, who did great.
The supporters trust, yeah.
Yeah, did brilliantly, right? Now, the chap who was in charge at Charlton during all the turmoil, his name escapes me. Is it Chris Southall? I think.
I think so. I'll double check for you while you tell the rest of the story.
Yeah, basically, he's trying to. The guys who managed to get hold of shares from other shareholders and failed to complete the hostile takeover. So Curran was one of them, the guy who was involved at Swindon with Lee Power. Yeah, great stuff. They are now selling, I think, 25% of the shares in Rochdale to Chris Southall, who was the guy at Charlton who, when the foreign investment came in to take over, he bought 10 grand a week flats and loads of Land Rovers with the money.
Matt Southall.
Matt Southall, I do apologise. If there's a Chris Southall out there, my apologies.
Is he the one who was related to that tennis ball protest there at the Vale all those years ago?
No, this was recent. This was recent. So
it's more recent than that. Okay.
This was the takeover that took place at Charlton prior to their current.
He sold
owner.
the club to sold the club to East Street Investments. He was leading East Street. Yes, he was ESI.
Does he precede Son? Was it Songard?
Yeah. So he was the guy
Okay.
that preceded Songard, and there was a legal battle with Songard, wasn't it, over who owned the club, and he was trying to say he owned Charlton. Oh, messy. But, Rochdale fans are a great bunch. They run their club properly. They have realistic expectations of what their side should be doing, and they have it. Their priorities are right. Ownership, structure, and good owners.
Proper community club.
Proper community club. You do not want someone who has been implicit in badly running and failing to take over Charlton, coming in, he's got no links to Rochdale at all, coming in trying to take a big portion of the club for himself. I mean, just ridiculous. I know he met with some of the fans, and I'm to be honest, I'm ignorant as to how that meeting went, so I won't discuss it further. But any Rochdale fans who want to get in touch with us and get involved, please do. But it just spells bad news. And
I see Rochdale's CEO that's just left is now linked with the CEO job at Oldham.
Was he a good CEO or a bad CEO?
Bad CEO.
Ah, okay. Makes sense then that he's linked with Oldham.
Yeah.
Dear. Anyway, John Yem's side went from Crawley, and they went to Rochdale, and they beat them 1-0. And Rochdale, interesting one, Ed, this, because they started the season and they played really good football. Obviously, they had a difficult summer as well to an extent, but I think they've got enough quality in that team not to be too concerned with being sucked into any issues at the bottom this season. Certainly think they're not playing well in the last few matches, and this dip in form is something that they'll have to quickly get themselves out of. However, I just think they have got enough quality in the team, and they play and can play. We've seen how they can play to get themselves out of this 3-game or 4-game without win, 3 straight defeats. Ed.
Yeah, sticky patch that I think they need to overcome, and I think they will. I like Rochdale's collection of forward options that they've got with Jake Beasley, Alex Newby, put Connor Grant up there, Josh Andrews. I quite like Cashman, who's on loan from Coventry at the moment.
Ado as well, isn't it?
You add into Ado as well, and then into midfield, Dooley, Morley, Liam Kelly's teaching there as well. There's more than enough quality about this to be in a bit of a higher position than they are at the moment, for sure.
Yeah. The drop off after that. I mean, to lose to Oldham, I think they played poorly there. They were unlucky not to score against Bradford. That's no doubt in my mind. They probably should have got at least 1 goal back in that game, maybe 2. They missed 2 sitters, if I remember rightly. And Ado missed a good chance in this one, but the Cat making the save, Glenn Morris, superb. Been one of the top keepers at this level for a long time. The data suggests that he is currently the top keeper in terms of how much he bails his side out, because the XGA for Crawley's not been great. They have had massive injury problems, but they themselves are doing quite well at the moment. I think John Yems deserves a lot of credit because he's getting a bit of stick, but they have started to pick up wins. They've won 4 of their last 6, only lost 1 in that run, and it's moved them up the table. Obviously, again, early days to talk about where they'll finish and whether they'll make a playoff challenge. But the thing about Crawley is if they do get their players back who are missing, they've got a nice balanced squad. It's a nice mixture of determined professionals, veterans and youngsters. So a really, really good result for them yesterday. And I was really unlucky to see Jack Payne hit the bar from what was a scorcher of a strike. Been impressed with his addition from Eastleigh, a player that basically leaves nothing out on the pitch. He's an absolutely top midfielder and a battler.
Which is your favourite Jack Payne in League Two?
I'd say Swindon's.
There's a question.
I'd say Swindon's because he played for Oxford and did well for us during.
Right, so there's bias. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. But Jackie Payne is Jackie Payne. I mean, I think Swindon's Jack Payne is a level above League Two. To be honest, shocked that he's down here. His career at one point looked destined for much higher things. So, and he's playing in a team at the moment that complement his style. So I think that's something to be said. I'm not sure that when he went to Bradford during those struggles, he looked like a guy lacking in confidence, as did that whole squad. So, I mean, Owen Doyle, the fact he had such a poor season says volumes about how poor that Bradford team was. So, won't judge him too much on that. Bristol Rovers beat Carlisle 3-0.
Cup final.
Cup final. Go on. Well, Chris, go on. Tell us what Joey Barton's been saying, just to add to his repertoire of quotes this season.
Yeah, I believe it was the pre-match interview before this match, and he said, I already know what the team talk's going to be. They're going to be bigging it up, saying, we've got to go out and beat Bristol Rovers, because Bristol Rovers, they spend all the money in the league, and they've got the best facilities in the league, and every team's coming to play Bristol Rovers like it's their cup
everyone wants
final.
to play for Bristol Rovers.
Everyone wants to play for Bristol Rovers, which, when you've got a league that's got Swindon and Oldham that have played, and Bradford that have played Premier League football, I mean, it really is... it's been the dream of these clubs to go to Bristol Rovers for so long. So I think he's spot on, to be honest.
He's right, actually. I wake up dreaming about being at the Mem, and I'm an Oxford fan, so I don't...
It's a quality stadium, yeah, and it's just Bristol, giants of English football, titans.
Yeah.
Biggest club in their city as well.
They are, yeah.
Oh, I shouldn't have said that. That was a mistake.
Enjoy your Twitter tonight.
Whoops. Can we cut that out?
Yeah, no, I'm leaving that in. It's amusing though that he has these delusions, maybe. I mean, Bristol Rovers fans, come on, they're a great bunch. They're not going to sit there saying that they're like everyone's cup final. They're a big team in terms of their support at this level, but
For sure.
They're a team that should be looking to go up to League One. But it's a complete joke to say that they're the cup final team in this league. They're just,
if anyone's a cup final
Rovers.
team in this league,
It's just Barton being Barton, though.
come on, the cup final team in this league, if we're all honest, is going to have to be Bradford, isn't it? Come on, huge stadium, 15,000 watching them at home. They are the biggest team in terms of stadium.
I don't really like that. I've never liked that term anyway, to be honest.
No, it's rubbish.
No, I don't either. But
I don't like that term.
James is right that if you're going to pick any of the clubs in League Two to have that, it is Bradford.
It's Harrogate.
So.
Yeah, it's a stupid thing. I mean, it's again, he says things that put him under more scrutiny and pressure. But they did play well yesterday against the Carlisle team that just bang out of form. Really, really feel for Chris Beach. A lot of pressure he's under. I would say this about Chris Beach. I don't necessarily see at the moment who would go to Carlisle under the current circumstances and really do well.
Beach isn't the big problem in Carlisle, though, is it?
I don't think so.
It's not the players or the manager, really.
I think they have very limited resources. They have a very difficult way of negotiating contracts. I mean, the players that left from last season, including...
Has anything new happened there, or is it the same problems that have been happening for the last few years?
I think it's the same problems, isn't it? There's nothing particularly new. Obviously, Edinburgh Woolermill went into administration, and that's a concern because they loaned Carlisle quite a substantial sum. I don't think anything's come of that. But just the way that you look at the lineup that started last season, the front three is pretty much completely different, and the back four is completely different. He has kept the midfield and new contracts for John Milesh and Callum Guy deserve credit, but I just I don't know really. I feel for him. It's a difficult situation, but yesterday's he had his goalie was injured, Mellor was injured, Rod McDonald wasn't back yet as a centre back, so they had Feeney, Whelan, Devine, and Armour as their back four, which it's not really experienced, and Devine's a kind of utility man who can play right back, but he's more of a midfielder by tradition. So, difficult times for Carlisle at the moment. I understand the fans wanting Beach to go, and maybe the run he's been on, you can't argue against it. But I'm always loath to be too critical of managers. I think there have been mitigating circumstances, and perhaps he hasn't adapted to them as best as he could have. But Bristol Rovers, fair play to them, 3-0 win. It doesn't necessarily take away my concerns.
Why don't you go to church more often?
Huh?
Oh, did you miss that? He said, it's one of the other things he came up with yesterday, saying things like, I went to church, I left an hour with myself, and I realised I've been sent here to save this football club.
Oh, I can't swear.
It's an amazing quote. I love it. It's so good. And to be fair, it's got them a 3-0 win, so maybe there's something in it.
My goodness. I'm speechless. Yeah. He's there under it's his divine destiny.
To save them from the doldrums.
Yeah. Of which he was partly responsible.
Of which he's partly responsible to putting them in, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he has got, let's be honest, he's got some defensive issues right now. And they did.
What I love is that he's bigged up the budget at Bristol Rovers, and now they're sitting 16th.
Yeah. They got a win, though. And I think actually looking at Collins, Anderson, Evans, Saunders, not bad sort of quadrant to have going forward, and there's players to come into that. Coots, I think Coots is a great midfielder. Glenn Whelan will offer his experience, and Sam Finley out for a few weeks. I mean, that's a big loss. Sam Finley's probably the best player they've got, in my opinion, when he's on his game. So they do have some difficulties to deal with themselves. But yeah, great win. 3-0, clean sheet. Obviously, 2 late goals as Carlisle were trying to sort of push a bit. But we go. Yeah, let's see how long this renaissance of Joey Barton lasts. I'm not sure. I'm completely convinced. Barrow and Leyton Orient played out a 1-1 draw. A decent result this, I think, for Leyton Orient. Barrow, it's a difficult place to go. I think Mark Cooper has done a really good job considering the crisis of personnel that he has. There's quite a few clubs in the low leagues, and in this division in particular, that seem to be really hit by injuries at the moment. Barrow one of them. They only had 4 subs, I think, in their midweek game, and I don't know if were they able to actually fill the bench in this one, because there was
They had 6.
Okay, so they weren't quite as far off, but indeed that they have got some struggles to deal with. I like we talked about last week. I like this team. I think they've got enough exciting players in it to push them up the table. Lacking in depth at the minute, but a 1-1 draw against Leyton Orient. It's not to be sniffed at. Leyton Orient, a very, very good team, who have been going great guns recently. Exeter have been the draw merchants so far, haven't they, in this division? Another draw from them against a much improved Stevenage side. Their last 3 performances should be, I think, giving their fans a lot of relief from the concerns they would have had a few games ago. Since Harrogate, Stevenage have looked much better. Beat Oxford in the Tin Pot Trophy, or the Pizza Trophy, in midweek, and fair play to them. Look good for that. Elliot Liss with 2 cracking finishes in this. Nombe getting a goal and Matt Jay scoring for Exeter. I like Exeter, and I think they will be better than they are, but they do seem to be unable to see games out, or just, how many draws is that now for them? It must be at least 5 or 6.
Well, to sum it up, they've been on an unbeaten run in League 2 since the 14th of August, and there's only been 3 wins in that time.
7 draws in 11 games.
7 draws, yeah.
Which,
only 1 loss.
One defeat. Yeah, 1 defeat, which, along with Harrogate, I think is the fewest in the division. But it's just about getting the points on the board, because you can lose 2 games and win 1, and you get 3 points, and you can draw 3 and get 3 points. It's a case of, you want to get those victories if you want to have a realistic shot at I think, a squad that's capable of automatic promotion if you look at what they've got on offer.
I also think it's a squad that is capable of blitzing teams in this league. It has done it a couple of times.
Yeah, absolutely it is. Yeah, absolutely.
When they're on it, they're really hard to deal with.
Like Giovanni Brown, Matt Jay, and Sam Nombe. I mean, you wouldn't want to play against those 3, would you, if you're a defender?
Not at all.
Oh, I'd have nightmares. I mean, they're good, skillful players. They're pacey. They're intelligent.
And again, I think, a bit like I said previously, they're a bit of a fluid front line as well. They're able to interchange with one another, which you can have a really effective with the team.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. But Stevenage, let's not take anything away from them, because they have had to step up after a struggling spell, and they've got some they're unbeaten in the last 3 in the league, 4 in all competitions, and it's just, it's good to see Alex Ravel starting to get something out of this team. And they notoriously don't do very well against Exeter either, so that's something to bear in mind. Northampton lost at Hartlepool. Losing at Hartlepool.
This home record is stupid, by the way.
It is, isn't it?
It's as impressive as Tranmere's defensive record.
It's unbelievable. And they're doing it with some key players missing as well. 2-1. I love it when, I think we discussed it before, when one full back or one wing back sets up a goal for the other wing back, and Sterry's cross, Ferguson with a brilliant header, and Hartlepool getting a 2-1 win thanks to Molyneux scoring the winner. Northampton 4 games now without a win. A little bit stagnated in their play. They're on one of that, because it wasn't long ago, I swear they were right up there in the top sort of 5 or 6 or something like that.
Yeah, but you always kind of felt, looking at them, that it felt a bit of a narrow margins team. They were just getting the edge in certain games, and you weren't sure if that was too sustainable. So, if I'm honest, I'm not that surprised they've dropped off a bit.
No, me neither. But Danny Rose suspended yesterday, and I think he's an important player for them. Only 1 game, so I think it was a 5 yellow card suspension rather than anything more than that. So he should be back. And obviously they're missing, they're missing Mills, who I think is a key player for any team at this level. Is it a broken ankle that he suffered? Joseph Mills. Big loss in that department for them. And, they have had, with Sid Nelson being injured, this kind of feeling that, oh dear, defensively, Guthrie, I know, was out last week. They're a little bit short of cover in that area, and it leaves a team. You need good centre backs to be successful in League Two. Something that I think Hartlepool certainly have done. Guthrie was back yesterday playing with Horsfall. McGowan, their right back, sort of moved into a back 3. Ali Koi playing the left wing back, and looks like McWilliams was playing the right wing back. It's like a 5. They played a 5-4-1. in an interesting setup. You don't often see wing backs playing in the same team as wingers, because they had Hoskins on the right wing and Pinnock on the left wing.
Not in a 5-4-1, no. It's normally a 3-4-3 where you get things like that.
Mm.
And the wingers are pretty narrow in that case.
Well, they've. I'm only looking at the BBC formation setter, so maybe that's wrong, and Northampton fans can fill us in. But yeah,
who scored as it set up in the same way, and it does look very strange.
I've got Flash scored the same here as well. It does. It does feel like a bit of a damage limitations formation, doesn't it?
Does.
It's a bit weird to do.
It does feel like they were just trying to set up there and get something out of the game. Walsall beat Salford. I shouldn't take any joy in seeing Salford lose, but it's quite funny. You know, each season that they come in and they come in and
I would
think, they're going to
sack their manager this time.
He's got to be on thin ice, hasn't he? Knowing their record and knowing how.
But it was a stupid appointment, and he's been terrible.
Well, he didn't get them into the playoffs this season. They're 17th in the table. Again, though, it's weird because the data looks quite good for them, but I was pleased to see Connor Wilkinson come back from injury. I think this was a bit of a shock because in the pre-match interview, Matt Taylor was certainly suggesting that no new players would be coming back from their injury crisis, and he snuck Connor Wilkinson in there.
I love
Who
that.
gets a 95th minute winner.
Yeah.
I love it.
And
they scored in the first minute and right at the end as well, the Walsall.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah,
it's quite funny.
Yeah, I wanted to plan that. Josh Labadie coming off. I hope that's not an injury, because he's an important player for them in that midfield. Offers some experience. He's come back and done well. Miller, Osadebi, Keane, and Phillips. Phillips with a really nice goal in this one. You know, I think it was like 20 something seconds into the match. Good driving run, lovely finish, and a needed win for Walsall. It moves them up, gives them some breathing space because they were a team I was a bit worried about. The data didn't look good in those opening few matches for them. They were giving up far too many good goal-scoring chances.
It's like the end of last year again, isn't it? Where Walsall and Colchester you don't feel very confident with.
Yeah, it's funny that. Yeah, it is. It's weird.
It's like nothing's changed for them, unfortunately.
Except Walsall's changed dramatically. Like the whole squad, the manager, the setup, the off-field setup.
The personnel has changed, but it still feels.
It will be interesting to see if they can settle down under Matt Taylor. And start really showing what he wants them to be on the pitch. I don't think that's necessarily happened yet, for whatever reason. But that's another important result against, I think, a team on paper, Salford. You can't deny the quality they've got on paper, but football is not played on paper, is it? So another disappointing result for their supporters. Other two games in this division were Newport 0, Bradford 0. I think Newport were highly unlucky.
Did you hear what Derek Adams had to say about the Newport crowd?
Oh no, what did he say? Go on.
Apparently there was this hostile atmosphere towards him because, Derek Adams was the Morecambe boss, obviously, during that Wembley League final last year. And apparently there was this hostile crowd targeted at him all game. And Derek Adams just said, I didn't hear them. He basically just said, I was expecting a hostile atmosphere, I didn't hear anything. It's Derek Adams being brilliant again.
Derek Adams being Derek Adams, yeah.
Just love that man. Fantastic.
Yeah, he's clever. He's clever in that respect. And he'll be delighted to have got a point there because I think Newport, how James Clark did not score a header from point blank range. He managed to hit the bar from 2 yards out. He ended up going in the net. The ball did not. And that sort of summed up the lack of luck they had on the day. But I think Newport looking better in the last couple of matches, and interesting to see what they do with the manager situation going forward. Mansfield drew 0-0 with Oldham. No shocks at all that this finished 0-0. I think Oldham played some good football.
Who were the better team, I thought.
Yeah, I'd agree. I did watch this. Bahambula didn't really get enough on the ball for me.
Benny Kutto. Can we just take a moment to talk about him?
I'm happy that we could talk Benny Kutto for the rest of the pod if you want. I'm all for it.
He's a fantastic young player. Come for the U team. He signed a 3-year deal in the middle of the week. And yesterday, I thought everything he touched turned to gold. He was superb.
Nearly setting up Durnley, who lovely touch inside and shot, which was well saved.
Yeah, the shot was a bit
weak.
Poor. I think he's coming back from injury, so I'm hoping he can stay fit now.
Yeah. I thought you guys were slightly unlucky. A lot of Kuto's got a long throw, hasn't he, for a kid?
Oh, I thought Tom Hamer had a long throw. Bloody hell!
Have we signed the wrong left back?
You have.
Should we have gone Kutto?
I have to say though, Oldham needs someone who can put the ball in there, because every time that throwing came in, I love Bahambula, but there was one point it bounced at his feet and he just watched it go past, and I thought, just smack it.
McGahey hitting the crossbar from point blank range as well, which I can't remember if that was a throw in or a corner. The throw-ins are more effective than the corners.
I think if you've got a long throw specialist, it can be so effective, as we've seen with Cheltenham and the like. So yeah, absolutely. But a 0-0 draw, good result in the end for Oldham, and I think Manchester will take anything at the moment with the number of people they've got out. I think it's 5 injuries and 3 suspensions. So
I didn't think we looked like a relegation threatened team yesterday, which gives me a semblance of hope. I've explained my reasons that I've not watched many Oldham games this season, but I was pleasantly surprised yesterday.
Indeed. Well, we're running out of time, so the League 2 table, obviously, with Forest Green, Harrogate and Swindon in the top 3, Tranmere, Port Vale, Leyton Orient, Sutton in the playoff places. Oldham still in the bottom 3, but they're within touching distance of several teams, so not too worried. Scunthorpe bottom, very worried about Scunthorpe. I just don't see how they improve, but let's go and jump in very briefly today into League 1.
League 1.
And there are only 4 games in League 1. Wycombe beating Gillingham by 2-0. Ipswich beating Shrewsbury by 2-1. Sheffield Wednesday beating Bolton 1-0. That's a great result for Sheffield Wednesday. And Ed, just briefly, you were at Home Park, Plymouth 2, Burton Albion 1. Give us your take on Plymouth, because they I can't believe this, but the top as we go into next week.
Yeah, long trip back, obviously, for obvious reasons. I'll try and keep it brief. Very strange game. I wanted to leave halfway through it at half time because Argyle had just absolutely battered them. Burton could hardly string a couple of passes together. They were very fortunate to only be 2 down, really. Ryan Hardy with his runs in behind. It's such a dangerous weapon. I really believe that any team who has a guy that can make that kind of movement in behind on a consistent basis can cause damage to any opponent, and he showed that yesterday. Burton come out second half, change of formation. They dropped Deji Oshalaja back into defence in between Connor Shaughnessy and Ryan Leake. Basically matched Plymouth Argyle in terms of formation, and it did have an impact. Argyle weren't comfortable dealing with it. They get a goal back through Lucas Akins. You wonder if maybe they can pull themselves back level. It left a bit edgy, but ultimately that was the only shot on target Burton had in the second half. Argyle get the win. You could see from the celebrations from Ryan Lowe at full time exactly what that meant. They are good. They're very good at the minute. I don't know if they will go all the way, whether this first place is sustainable, because there's a lot of quality at the top, but they look far, far better than a team we had relegation worries about before the season began.
And that's a huge credit to Ryan Lowe, his recruitment team.
Massive credit.
And the way they're playing. Brilliant. I actually think in my personal predictions had them finishing the bottom 3 because they were so woeful at the end of last season. But to turn it round the way he has, absolutely superb.
The solidity that back 3 has now with Dan Scarr in the middle of it is very good.
Amazing.
I think all 4 of us had them in at least the bottom half.
Yeah.
It's just been brilliant to see them turn it round.
It's the mid. I want to mention the midfield 3 though as well, because you got Panucci Kamaru, who I love, is one of my favourite midfielders. He's this such cool, composed player, real good link between defence and midfield. Ryan Broom, a bit more attacking wise. It was always going to work best for Sandra Argyle because he's basically the kind of player you want in a 3-5-2, and it's exactly what Argyle play. And Jordan Houghton, who sits at the base, is really underrated as well. He plays that really kind of sweeper role in front of the back line, does that really well as well, and lets the wing backs push forwards and attacking areas.
Yeah, but it's great to see them do so well. They're top of the table, 11 unbeaten, which means their defeat against Rotherham on the opening day is their only loss.
Yep.
Yeah, crazy.
That's a club that has the infrastructure to be in the Championship, and I don't see why they couldn't challenge for it this year.
Let's hope they
do. Very good.
Let's hope they do. We're going to have to leave it there. I hope you have enjoyed listening to this bit of a League 2 deep dive this week, but we had to play a little bit of homage to Plymouth, who it's great to see them top of the table. Wycombe, obviously, second, who are going great guns. I'm not so surprised about Wycombe because I think they've got a great squad and a manager that, stability there and consistency of football has been pretty good over the last few seasons. Wigan third, Sunderland fourth, Rotherham fifth, and MK Dons sixth. Obviously, none of these teams are really playing. Not much difference in the bottom 4. Worried about Shrewsbury still because they are second bottom, just above Doncaster, with Crewe and Charlton in the relegation places too. Guys, thank you for joining me today to speak mostly about the 4th tier.
Yep.
Pleasure.
And we hope you've enjoyed this little bit of a different listen for a change. We'll be back next week with a full slate of matches in both divisions. But until then, take care.